Okay, good evening, everybody. I see we have only one person online today, but not a problem. I do understand it's the long weekend, so Fake Friday it is. The session will be recorded, so for everybody who's missed today, you can catch up. Before I start with the actual lecture, I'm just going to go over the POE Part 1 PACER. So this is the part one POE that is due for you guys on the 19th of September. It does feature learning units 1 right through to learning unit 5. So what I did is I broke down the POE into different learning units, themes, as well as chapters, just so you know how to navigate the situation when you are looking at the actual POE. I went through the POE and it's quite a nice example, and there's a lot of application that you can do using other real life examples as well as the case study. So I'll go over it very, very quickly. So question 1 is coming out of Learning Unit 1, Theme 2, Chapter 1. So you'll see it's sort of going in sequence. I split question 3 into 3.1 and 3.2. The reason being is there's different learning units that's falling in these two questions, whereas the other questions sort of features just a specific learning unit itself. So please use this. How it is going to help you is as we go through different learning units throughout our lectures, whether it's a pre-recorded session or a live lecture, you can then start attacking those questions. So like for instance, today we'll be done with learning unit 2. You can actually do question 1, question 2, as well as question 4. When I am going through the lecture itself or the pre-recorded session, I'm focusing on those key aspects that forms part of the POE, so you have full understanding of how to basically combat the question. Try to use a lot of examples myself, just so that you understand how to then apply it. So please use this. Also, when we are looking at questions, when you do have questions regarding the POE, we can very quickly, turn to a specific learning unit. So it gives us a little bit more direction on how we're going to attack some of the modules. Okay, so that's basically it. Question 6 falls into the next page. So yeah, that's learning units 1 through to learning unit 5. And that's your POE part 1 PACER. As we navigate throughout the semester, when it comes towards the tail end of you actually doing the part 1 of the POE, I will then put together the PACER for the rest of the POE. The POE is very, very important. It is forming basically 100% of your marks. There is no examination or a test for this specific module. I have confirmed this. So all you have is a part 1 POE, which is your formative part of it, and then your final POE, which is, I think, learning unit 6 right down to your learning unit 10, which falls part of your summative. So 35% for your formative, 25% for your summative, and then your 4 ICE tasks for the semester. Your first ICE task for the semester will be released next week, Thursday, and you'll have a week to basically do that. A big portion of the ICE task will feature a part of the POE, so it's only giving you a little bit more learning experience. Okay, any questions so far? I'm assuming not. So let me rather go through our actual module for today. Okay. Oh, you want me to repeat that? Okay. So the slide that I had on previously, or what I shared previously on my screen, was your POE Part 1 PACER. I broke down each question into specific learning units, chapters, and themes, so that it makes it easier for you to navigate exactly where where you need to concentrate on. Like, for instance, I'm sure you would have seen the screen previously. For instance, question 1, question 2, and I think it's question 4, if I'm not mistaken, has learning units 1 and 2 featuring. So post this session, you at least can start on those questions. And then as we continue through the semester, or as we continue through our live lectures and our pre-recorded sessions, you will then go through the rest of the learning units. The first POE for part 1 is 35%, which is your formative. And then your summative, which is the balance of the POE, forms 25% of your mark. So just so that you are fully understanding that how important this is, there is no test or examination, which which you need to take into account. So this is for forming bulk of your assessments. The first ICE task will be released next week, Thursday. When you do get this, you have a week to basically do this and submit. The ICE task will feature a majority of your POE in there, so it gives you an understanding of how to handle the POE. Okay, so I hope that clears a lot of it. POE Pacer has been loaded onto VC Learn already. You would have gotten an announcement for that. Post this session, I will then release your D slides, which will conclude Learning Unit 2, as well as the recording. The recordings are now available on the YouTube link, which I've sent through. If you can't access the YouTube link, please use Blackboard Colab. All of the recordings are still there. I'm not removing it from there. The moment we finish a lecture, it will be basically available in 5 minutes post the lecture. Okay, so then we're moving on to our learning unit theme 1, 2, and 3. I know it sounds like a big theme, but I took out chunks from the entire learning unit that I think is going to help you. And my focus is predominantly on what is part of the POE. And I think that's what our aim is here. I'm not here to regurgitate the textbook. That's your job, is to read the textbook. I'm just here to pick on certain elements that I know is going to help you in terms of your understanding, to help you also further on in terms of how the POEs or the ICE tasks are going to be conducted. All right. Also, before I actually do begin here, the lecture 2, so the pre-recorded session, is also available on the YouTube link as well as Blackboard Colab. Slides are already posted on VC Learn, so please check that out. The module or the learning unit after this will be learning unit 3, which will also be a pre-recorded session. So please go through those recordings, because it's very important that you understand exactly what forms part of it, because every single learning unit that we are doing forms part of your POE. So I will be spending more time on that specific element that's part of that POE. So make sure that you are listening to the recordings if you miss a lecture. Okay. Or if we don't have a lecture schedule for that specific week. Thank you. So let's start. Sorry, let me just read this quickly. I know, I think if somebody can help you, that would be amazing. So try and make friends. We have a WhatsApp group, so maybe just try and ask somebody they could help you out with a few pages. I think we on let's see, learning unit 5 goes right up to chapter 6. So you would probably need chapters 1 to chapter 6. So that is a lot of the textbook. I have the textbook here. Just want to see how many pages it is before we go on. Okay, let's start at forecasting, operations principles. Yeah, it's quite a bit of pages, I know. If someone can help you, if you can get an electronic version, would be great, because there is no examination that's open book. So yeah, it's actually 190 pages just on learning unit 1 right down to learning unit 5, which is part of part 1. POE. So you would, in the beginning, at least need 190 pages before you proceed. So yeah. Oh yes, no, I don't mind. I don't mind you actually, borrowing or trying and photocopying or whatever case, whatever helps you at the end. I don't mind it at all. You can, use your discretion as long as you get the material. That's the most important part. Okay. All right. So we're starting off learning unit 2 with the importance of customer satisfaction. So often when we need to put ourselves into the situation, what is our definition of what customer satisfaction is? So textbook definition is it basically measures how well the company's product or the services meet or exceed the expectations of a customer. Um, it's how happy you are with that specific product or the experience of the service that you had gotten or any sort of interaction with the business. So if you're interacting with an online business and the feedback from them is absolutely phenomenal, and you definitely think that you would be able to, you can and will order from them again. Here your expectation is high, it has met your expectation, and therefore you are satisfied as a customer. Some of the guidelines for basically managing the process when it comes to customer satisfaction is understanding key customers as well as what the markets are. So by understanding this, you need to understand where you're playing in terms of the market. Markets can be different segments. So different segments meaning if you're a player in a specific industry, are you targeting a high LSM group or a low or a middle class LSM group? And therefore you need to tailor make your products or your services to fit that specific LSM group. You're not now marketing a specific product to a lower LSM group, but you are putting it at a higher purchase price, and you know for sure that that specific segment cannot afford your product. So it's understanding who your customers are, understanding that the market that they're sitting in, and understanding whether your product is actually going to be a right fit for them at the end of the day. Then we have the voice of the customer, which is very, very important. Understanding what your customer needs and what's their expectation. So basically asking them for feedback, listening to what their feedback is, and then learning from it so that you can enhance your design, you can fulfill your production in a quicker time frame, and then deliver to them much easier. So understanding who the customer is and then listening to their voice so that you can learn and you can develop your product to the best of your abilities. The third one is building a customer relationship. So by building a customer relationship, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be a personal touch. You as a business may not directly be in contact with a specific customer, because if you do have a customer market that's 1 million or 2 million people, it's almost impossible for you to be in contact with them. However, what trust and confidence are you putting out in what your motto is, or your values, or your slogans for that matter? Do they now have trust in you when they're buying your product, to say that it's reliable and you have integrity in the way that you are producing and selling that specific item? Is it then easily accessible to your customer? Is it something that your customers are, the market information that you're sending out, the customer's informed about it? You're keeping up with what your customers' preferences are, what's the different trends in the market. So just making sure that everything is accessible to them and understanding what their needs are. Then it's setting your effective service standards. You want to be able to meet and exceed your customers' expectations. So you need to be able to set certain degrees of KPIs, so key performance indicators, of which you can either meet or exceed. Any person that's in direct contact with the customer, do they have the appropriate training where they can ensure that they're delivering exceptional service on your behalf? Like, for instance, And I know I speak a lot about the industry that I'm currently at, but I'm in a service industry. It's a logistics industry. We, as from a leader perspective, we are not always in front of a customer to deliver a service to them. However, our drivers are those individuals that is in direct contact when they're delivering items, shipments, bulk loads, containers, whatever that may be. Our drivers are the ones that's basically the face of the company. So it's our duty to make sure that our drivers are trained appropriately so that they can handle any sort of situation that a customer may have, whether it's customers being rude, how can they not retaliate? How can they then be cool, calm, and composed to a customer? So just making sure that there is an appropriate training schedule for them. And then it's an after sales service. So the after sales service is how can you now maintain your customer satisfaction? Like for instance, when you take your car out for a service, your car gets serviced. When you're done, most of the dealerships or service agencies, they call you afterwards to ask you how was that experience. Even the service itself is an after sale experience. So it's understanding um, and providing that effective and efficient after sales service to your customer. Then we go on to complaints management, so that it's just to make sure that you have appropriate channels so your customer can lodge either a complaint or a platform where they could get feedback from as quickly as possible. How can you now communicate with the customer the easiest and most streamlined way, just to make sure that that process is running absolutely smoothly. Then we have KPIs. So KPIs is your key performance indicators. How do you now measure and analyze customer satisfaction? So data analytics is very important, especially when you're either in a goods or even a service industry. The information that you get out of a customer in the back end, you can use that data and articulate exactly where your shortfall as a business or as a product is sitting, so that you can redesign, remanufacture, recompose it so that you can sell it to your customer and they'll be happy. So you want to have as minimal defects as possible. And then you have performance analysis based on that. Then we have competition, so any sort of competitive consideration, getting through a market analysis to understand what is your role, what is the role of your competitors in the market, what is your SWOT analysis, what is your internal strengths and weaknesses as a business that's providing a service or selling a product, and what is the opportunities and threats that's in the market also seen from your competitors. So many businesses actually do SWOT analysis on a quarterly basis, because you can understand opportunities and threats change quite often because you are dealing with an external environment. So you need to understand where that element is sitting, and how can you change a threat into an opportunity, and how can you convert your opportunity into a strength at the end of the day. So it's understanding where your competitors are, understanding your SWOT analysis, and trying your best to try and convert them into positives as opposed to negatives. Okay, are we all good here with customer satisfaction? It's pretty easy, it's pretty simple. You can bring this completely down to your own understanding by you purchasing products and you going through services with either whether it's getting your car serviced or anything from a service environment. So you'll be able to understand from that perspective. But if there's any questions at all, pop it in the chat box, unmute yourself, and we can keep it as interactive as possible. Okay, product development. So I've got product life cycle, but first we're going to go through product development before we switch on to life cycle. So what is product development? It is pretty self-explanatory, as it does say there. So a lot of it is focused on research and redesign activities so that your product can be marketed or sellable, and you can deliver profitability, you can deliver market share, you can deliver an increase of cash flow for the business itself. Your product life cycle can guide your product development process. to make sure that you reach the top level of the product life cycle by ensuring that you have more development of your product, or if you're introducing new products into the market. So as you can see, your product life cycle here, and I put a little snippet of it so that an illustration always shows it a lot better. So it, as I mentioned, it guides the development process. So your product life cycle has 4 basic stages. Okay. And your 4 basic stages is, it's a bell curve, basically. You're going to have a lot of peaks, you're going to have some troughs, and nobody's probably ever going to stay at the level of a peak if there is no innovation, if there isn't any re-engineering of product, or if there's no redesign or product development. So we're starting off with an introduction, so intro stage. And this is when your product is first introduced into the market. So you're spending a lot of money in terms of investments to manufacture your product, into marketing it, as well as advertising it. So you obviously need to introduce your product to the market. And this is where a lot of your investments are now coming into play. So by exposing your product to the market, you can now attract as much customers as possible so that you gain a lot more market shares, you give your competitors a run for their money, and then you reach a little bit of an incline into the growth phase. So when you reach the second phase, which is growth, this is you're still spending a lot more money in terms of advertising, so your expenditure is quite high, but it is sort of offset by sales of a product. So the more you're advertising, the more you're selling. So then you are now increasing the market share, you're increasing profitability as well as cash flow within the business. And then you'll see that it's slowly increasing again and just reaching our next step, which is the maturity stage. So in the maturity stage, it's more steady, it's more consistent. You're not spending that much money on advertising, but you are generating a lot more money in terms of sales. And then customer services and customer satisfaction becomes basically the driver behind this moving vehicle. You need to be able to retain as much customers, because you're now increasing your sales of your product, you're getting more market share and all of that. So the main objective in this stage within the business is that you need to keep it at maturity level for as long as possible to make sure that the business is profitable. So if you don't have anything in terms of, as I mentioned, innovation or product development, your product slowly starts to decline and it goes into the decline stage where the product becomes a little bit less relevant in the market. And at some stage, it gets phased out if you don't have any sort of innovation. Naturally, as you lose sales, it's not commercially viable to produce, so you're not manufacturing as much, and then it becomes obsolete and people tend to forget about the product. So it's trying to keep it at maturity as long as possible. As you're seeing it decline, you now need to increase your investments in terms of innovation and new ideas and new designs, etc. How do you now reestablish the product? I think at most businesses go through this stage, even if you are working. I mean, as much as it's a product life cycle, you also reach the stage with from a service industry where you go into a maturity stage, and then a lot of times organizations get very complacent when they get into a maturity stage. So they tend to not innovate and they tend to not invest money in technology, integration, anything that is sort of data analytics driven or AI driven. They tend to not invest money. Whereas us as consumers, we want things to happen for us at the click of our fingers. We want things to happen for us where if we order something, we want it delivered yesterday. And if people are not innovating from a service perspective, unfortunately, the decline stage is where they end up. Competition as well, it forces a lot of businesses to go into a decline stage. So it's, especially if you're not running a monopoly, it tends to happen where you go into a decline stage if you don't wake up before the competitors sneak on your customers. Okay, Are we understanding product life cycle so far? Okay. All right. So then let's go into the design process. So I spoke a little bit about designing your product, especially if you want to keep it from going into your decline stage. So basically, in the design process itself, it's basically before your product is produced or anything else, the design phase needs to be done. And the steps of the design phase is the 6-step process that I've got here on the screen. So the first phase is your planning phase. So this is your initial planning, idea generation. It's where your design strategy is basically planned. Anything from a tech perspective, anything from um, investment, if you need any resources, anything that needs to be investigated in terms of drafting any budgetary ideas, it's being done in the planning phase. So it's like when you're planning to go on a holiday, you always go and you research booking.com, Airbnb, whatever the likes are. You go and check various options. You understand what your budget is. Does it fit within your budget before you actually start before you start booking anything? So this is basically what your planning phase is. The second phase is concept development phase. So you understand who your target market is, or you're trying to understand who your target market is and what your target market actually wants. And you try and put every scenario together. So a lot of times what startup businesses do is they try and look for multiple scenarios of how things can work with different target markets. So you need to analyze it. You need to understand whether it will be accepted or it will be rejected by that specific market. So it's testing the concept, if I can say that, sparking new ideas to different markets and understanding whether it will be bitten or, whether it will be swallowed, basically. Then you go into your third phase, which is your system design phase. And this is where your any sort of system or any subsystems that's involved in terms of you manufacturing your product, or whether the product needs to be redesigned or modified to allow for a new product to come into the process. So let's say you have an existing factory and you want to produce a brand new product that's not part of the current product line. Can the existing resources that you have in terms of machinery or any sort of 3D printers, etc., would that current system work for the new product, or do you now need to redesign the system in order for it to work for the new product? Okay, then we have detailed design. Um, the detailed design phase where there's the details of the exact design of the goods or the service, whatever it is captured and it's then designed in detail. So what materials you need, raw materials, what levels of components you require, everything needs to now be articulated so you can plan out your actual product, which will then go into a testing and improvement phase. Any prototypes that you require is then produced. You're testing it for quality. Um, uh, you need to do all of these evaluations and you need it signed off. Anything that came through as an error or maybe a little bit of a defect, how can you now correct it? So there's going to be a lot of design and redesign and modification and review and POCs, so proof of concepts, before you actually go out and start producing a whole chain of products, which is step 6, which is your production initialization phase. So you have your actual production. Who is your labor force? They're being trained to produce the specific item or the specific goods. And understanding where your operations is sitting in from this perspective, making sure you have quality, you know what your initial specifications are, at the level that you basically need it to be processed at. Something within the product or the design process, which is including your product development as well as everything that we spoke on product life cycle, is you need to have a good team behind you. So the team itself, they need to understand what their product design process is. They need to ensure that the process is followed. They involve customers, for testing. It's basically a team of people that is made up who have different functions within the business. And I think we went through like different functions. It was actually in the pre-recorded session where you have ops managers and factory managers and a whole lot of different managers that now come together to try and carry out the design process and the development process, each person with a different level of expertise, but as a team, skilled, and will be able to take the design and development process further. So it's just understanding that portion of it. All right. Okay, then we go on to robust design. Okay, and what is a robust design? And I'll share some examples with you. But basically, your robust design is a scientific approach to design any product or even a service to ensure that performance goals are met. So it basically making sure that you minimize any sort of variation. You can use the product for various conditions, and you try and maximize the product life. So an example that I picture when I was looking through some case studies to share with you was uh, a good example was for the South African market itself is the design and the production of the Toyota Hilux. It is quite a versatile and a robust vehicle, and used basically all around the country. So whether it's in an urban area for commuting or whether it's your off-road conditions, that's basically your robust design is a Toyota Hilux. So from a minimizing variation perspective, the manufacturing process itself for the Toyota Hilux is basically there so that it's consistently of quality and of performance. Um, they use very high quality materials to minimize the variation in the final product. It's also engineered to make sure that they perform under wide range of conditions, like, as I mentioned, urban commuting as well as off-road. So navigating different city streets, handling heavy roads, and just versatile in terms of the challenging terrains that we have in South Africa. And it can adapt very, very easily, and it can perform efficiently on the roads. Um, I wouldn't go through any of the detail of like the chassis and suspensions and all of those stories because I don't teach mechanics, but just from a robust design perspective, that's what it is. Also, from a maximizing the product life perspective, it's built with longevity in mind. So it needs to be a very functional vehicle so that it's reliable over a longer period of time. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, as much as I use Toyota Hilux as an example, um, there's probably other vehicles or other automotives or other OEMs that share the very same sentiments as a robust design of a Toyota Hilux. It's something that it can be easily maintained, it can be repaired easily. It's operational. There's minimal downtime with the vehicles. So it's understanding something that is quite strong, and a lot of the goals that you set out for it can be met. So that's what a robust design is. Okay. Then we have manufacturing. So manufacturing is also known as DFM, which is design for manufacturing. And it's basically based on the premise that the products that is made, it it makes them very easy to manufacture again, if that makes sense. The easier the product is to produce, the more cost effective it is, and the risk of quality or poor quality is decreased. So it's an easily manufacturable product, and it can be redesigned and remanufactured quite easily. So a manufactured product can be manufactured again. That's what manufacturability is. Okay, so pulled out a study on Bell Equipment. I'm pretty sure everybody knows Bell Equipment is quite a big brand, sitting somewhere up in Richards Bay. And really a prime example when you're thinking about manufacturability as well as value analysis. Okay, so Bell Equipment is known for heavy machinery, especially the ADT, so it's the articulated dump trucks. So it's used in different industries like construction, mining, agricultural as well. Um, and where the DFM is coming out for the Bell Equipment's articulated dump trucks is the design of it is very simple. Um, Bell Equipment kept the simplicity in mind when they were designing the ADTs. So they minimize the number of parts and they use multifunctional components so that they don't make such a complex manufacturing process. So it doesn't only keep the product cost lower, but it also makes sure that the product is reliable. And then when it does come to after sales, it can be easily less downtime. It's a very reliable product. They use very standardized components across all of their models. So it's not customized where you have to wait for a product from Germany, for instance, to attach it into the product so that it can now be used again. It's something that's very versatile, it's very standardized, so it can be easily available. It also simplifies your manufacturing process and it allows for better repairs and maintenance, and it assembles very well. So it's got a good it cuts down your assembly time, it cuts down the cost associated with that, and it decreases any errors when you are assembling the item, so that your final product is basically more reliable, which is what you want. So some businesses are going through the route of DFM, whilst other businesses are going through the route of having something that has uniqueness, customized. By having uniqueness and customized, unfortunately, when it does come to a redesign process and remanufacturing, you have to wait, and it tends to become very expensive from a landed cost perspective because you're importing a lot of the products or the components that go into the actual product. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're going through your case study, because if I'm not mistaken, it is on Jaguar, which is part of the automotive sort of industry. Okay. Let's shoot over to new product ideas. Okay. So what is new product ideas? Simple. It says that exactly in the title. It's generating new ideas. The process of generating new ideas is not simple, and it requires different talents from different people. That it's creative talents, and some of the sort of talents or the guidelines and ideas can be think creatively. So making sure that they know exactly what the existing products are, and based on the existing products, they're thinking creatively for a new product line or a new product design, analyzing what your competitors' products are, what is your competitor's strengths, what's the weaknesses, what's the opportunities and threats in the external environment, asking for ideas from existing customers as well as potential customers so you know what your market is asking for and you speak into that with your new product. Inviting stakeholders. So by inviting stakeholders, you can understand. So stakeholders meaning anybody who has an involvement in your product. So we call it a horizontal and a vertical line. So it's your customers and your customers' suppliers. That's what we speak about in the industry. So these are all your stakeholders that's basically involved. So it's understanding from their perspective, what do they think would work in a new product or a new development that you're trying to do. Focus on your customer, focus on what they want. Even if they don't express what they want, find creative ways to get them to tell you what they want, whether it's market-related surveys, maybe it's an after-sale link that gets sent to them, anything from a marketing perspective that will basically allow your customer to express what they feel about your current product and what do they think would work for a new product. And then involve your suppliers. It's good to always involve your suppliers part of your board meetings, especially when it comes to new product design, because your suppliers know best when it comes to raw materials, components, the equipment that's used, the machinery that's used, any sort of factory layout that happens. Your suppliers are generally the ones to guide you as to what is and what isn't possible. So having them around that boardroom table does help, because their knowledge is not your knowledge, and vice versa. So it's always nice to have all parties and all stakeholders involved so that you have a development of new product ideas. Key, remember this, remember these terms. This is part of your POE. So how you analyze these 6 points into the case study, very important. So please understand what these are. Okay, then we're going on to some of the factors that influence the need for new products as well as new services. Um, the first one is economic factors. So we know what's happening from an economy perspective, where our growth is sitting, inflation rate increases, interest rate increases, or it just changes. It influences what the profitability of a business is, and also it influences what we have as a consumer in our pockets. So understanding whether the new product is going to cost more money. So me as a consumer, can I afford it or not? Or by it costing more money, it meant that there was a lot more expensive items or material that was used in the production process, which affects the profitability of the organizations. So just understanding what those economic factors are, it does influence whether there's a need for a new product or a new service for the organization. Technology advances. So any sort of changes in technology definitely influence the expectations of the customer. Whether it's manufacturing it, whether it's putting components together, any cost savings that can be achieved using current technology is welcomed, because at the end of the day, it means that it's cheaper sellable price for a customer. So it affects their back pocket basically. Market information as well as your customer knowledge. You need to ensure that you improve the quality of your product by having new product ideas and new products. How does it influence the market? How does it influence the customer? And how can you now tailor it to make sure that it meets the expectations of your customers? So understanding what that market is and what the information is and what your customer wants. So gaining as much market information as possible. Legal and political changes. So when anything political or legal changes, there needs to be agreements, either treaties between countries, whether it's something from a SONA address, or there's changes in terms of customs clearances. Like very recently, there was a change in the lower value when you're buying Shein products. So did this now affect people buying Shein? It's asking those sort of questions with anything from a change perspective, whether it's a custom, whether it's a port delay, whether it's the Red Sea in shambles. What is it that's going to affect the product at the end of the day? Is it going to what effect would it have on the availability of certain items or components that will spark the search for new items or new options? And then from a general perspective, it's just, where's your supplier sitting? What is their availability in terms of what they can source for you? So that it doesn't put a hamper when your new ideas are being developed. Like, all fair and well, you have this brilliant idea, but then your suppliers can't come to the party and actually make this happen. How can they then improve components if they do have the necessary means to do so that our costs are reduced as an organization at the end? So it's understanding it from all different factors. Okay. Then we move on to our interesting friend, which is Kaizen. And I'm hoping many of you have come across this terminology before when we speak on Kaizen. But Kaizen is change for improvement. Okay. And a lot of times the organization a lot of organizations use Kaizen, which roughly translates into good change is improvement. And sorry, Superior. Unfortunately, that's what it is. All of us, and even if you're in a fully service industry, you have Kaizen reports all the time. And a lot of times it's feedback, meaning you need to reflect on what the process is. Is the process efficient? So how do you now reduce, remove, eliminate any sort of wastage in your process? And evolution, which is how can we change? How can we make it better? So some of the features of Kaizen is improvements. I don't want to go through this because I think the example that I'm about to give you is going to speak a lot of what the features of Kaizen is. So I chose the example of Kaizen at Woolworths. Okay, so Woolworths, as we all know and love, is one of the leading retail chains in South Africa. So they have Kaizen sort of continuous improvement initiatives built within their structure or in their working place. So they embedded some of the principles into their operations specifically. And I mean, it's not operations as in, just people from a logistics perspective, but it's people on the floor as well. And you'll understand it as we go along. And you'll actually understand how you yourself, if you are in the working environment, how you use Kaizen. As CPO said, he's using Kaizen all the time and has to submit dozens of reports. And when you really look at it, you'll understand. You may not know the terminology of it, but you really are using it. So a lot of the focus is on having feedback, having efficiency, as well as having evolution. So how do you now drive change across the entire organization? So when we speak on improvements, that's as many, small changes basically. So Woolworths, for instance, encourages the employees to make small, continuous improvements in their daily tasks. Whether they do it or they don't, I cannot confirm this. However, I can tell you that it's being driven from a Woolworths perspective, through the chain of command. So an example of this is employees regularly suggest sort of minor improvements to rearrange shelves or product displays so that it enhances or increases the experience for your customer. So if your customer's experience is increased or enhanced, it improves the sales. It's as parents, okay? We walk down, so I've got a little 3-year-old toddler. I walk into Woolies and I walk down the aisle to go pay. Similarly with Pick and Pay and Checkers, and they put all of the sweets and chocolates in the aisle to pay. So us as parents, your kids screaming, pulling out chips and chocolates out of this paying aisle, you don't have a you don't have you don't have a choice but to basically change it. Um, so how do we now make improvements so that we can increase as much sales as possible? So clever tactics, but tactics that basically work. Um, what is the ideas from your workers? So having an opportunity or having a culture in the environment where all levels are encouraged to share any ideas for improvement. And I think this is really great trait that a lot of organizations can take. It's having your regular brainstorming sessions in your organization. So maybe it's every department coming together, having those brainstorming sessions, any sort of suggestion boxes, um, how can they now contribute their ideas so that the business um, benefits at the end of the day. Something that's practical, something that's easy to implement, because these are the people that's on the floor. These are the people that are seeing everything on a day-to-day basis. So then they understand from their perspective exactly where customers see themselves. So small changes, incremental changes, just so that you see some sort of improvement. Then we have less investment from a finance and resource perspective. Um, since the ideas for improvement come from employees are, incremental, Woolworths doesn't invest heavily on external consultants or large-scale programs. They try and leverage off the existing workforce knowledge because these are the people that's involved with it on a daily basis. Continuous flow of ideas, having that, as I spoke about, that environment and the culture, just to enhance efficiency, improve their performance. Employees are also motivated to think on the job. They think creatively. When they see something, they can immediately, say, you know what, this is going to work. Let's do this. And they can contribute to the company's success at the end of the day. And then it increases ownership and motivation, because when they see the ideas being implemented, they want to bring more ideas. It gives them a sense of ownership. It gives them a sense of accountability, which is something that every organization needs to give their employees at the end of the day. In order for you to put in or implement some sort of change of improvement, you need to have people that's going to drive the change for improvement. And from a leadership perspective, it's the type of culture and the environment that you hold within your organization that's going to take it over the battle line. Basically, if you're running an organization or a department or a team or whatever it is under a microscope and under a micromanaging aspect, unfortunately Kaizen is not going to exist there. You are not going to have any sort of improvement, because people are just going to be afraid to open up and to speak about how we can improve. Personally, from our perspective, like in the logistics industry, we have a huge operations floor with many employees that work on the floor or walk in and out of the floor, drivers that pass through the floor multiple times in a day. And we often have something we call a gamble walk. So a gamble walk is walking through, trying to see any inefficiencies, look at any levels of improvement that we can do. So it's bringing into account in all supply chain concepts into the environment for how we can be better, how can we reduce costs, how can we improve profitability, and then give a better service to a customer so that we have a better cash flow. It improves our balance sheet. So you see how everything just happens in that sequence. It's a lot harder than what I'm saying it is. There's a lot more work that goes into it. But, if you have the right mindset of you wanting to actually improve and change and, be better, then it will happen. You can have a lot of improvements from that perspective. Okay, Superior, I see you said it's an approach to creating continuous improvement based on the idea that small, ongoing, positive changes can reap significant improvements. Absolutely. And I think Woolworths was just one example that I've used. I mean, there's various organizations that have used Kaizen and have been successful, and a lot of Kaizen stems from you as an employee wanting to make those changes within the organization. Okay, promise we're almost at the end. Okay, so customer satisfaction, which we kind of touched on before, but frequent term that's frequently used in marketing. How can we now measure how products and services are supplied by an organization to meet your customers' expectation? Then what's your number of customers? What is the percentage of your total customers who's reported an experience within your organization? The products that you sell, and what has exceeded your sort of goal that you set, or your performance goal that you set. And then we have mass customization. So mass customization is a new paradigm that replaces mass production. So mass production meaning producing items in a large scale. In this time, it's not really suitable anymore when you're having customers that require more customized approaches. So it is becoming a more of a growing product variety, especially when it comes to like the electronics environment, especially from a like a 3D printing and that sort of environment. Rapidly evolving market, and it allows for your individually produced customized products to be sold over the internet. So I have a customer that actually does customized jewelry. I'm not sure if I mentioned it to this class, but their operations is mass customization. As much as it is customized products, the amount of products that they manufacture in a day is shocking. It's just like go, go, go. And it's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of jewelry that come out of their business on a daily basis. And everything purely customized. If I want my name on a chain, if I want my child's name on a chain, if I want a specific symbol, if I want a little bracelet, I want an engraved ring, whatever that element is, as it's just customized in a mass production, basically. So that's what mass customization is. Okay, I'm going to go through the last slide right now, which is the future of design process. And what is the future of design process? And I've got a little bit of the explanation here. And future design processes are likely to be influenced by future trends. Okay, we're going to go over some of that. Continuous improvements needs to be ingrained in the way organizations design and develop products. So one of the examples that I pulled, that was not Woolworths, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. But one of the examples that I pulled out was discovery. So discovery as in the medical aid discovery, which we know they're one of the leaders in terms of medical aid providers in South Africa. And they show how future design process is shaped by what I've got here: economy, technology, meter, competitive pressure, as well as environmental issues. And we'll touch on a little bit of that. So they're one of the providers that's at the forefront of innovation in terms of the healthcare industry. So from an economy perspective, it's where the health trends and the economic pressures are sitting. So Discovery sort of understands that there's a growing focus on preventive healthcare as well as wellness. So they offer health plans that incentivize healthy living, like the Vitality program. You know, it rewards you for going to the gym. It involves you rewards you for healthy promoting activities. You know, when there's a economic downturn, they provide some, you know, flexible payment options to make sure that you still have a healthcare option. So from that process, you know, they're very open-minded. It's not like stringent. I mean, some may differ in their opinion to them, but this is probably the mass majority is happy with the way that things run from a vitality and a discovery program, etc. Then from a technology, they use a lot of advanced technologies like, you know, your your wearable health devices that linked to your cell phones, any sort of AI, so that it enhances their service. They've got that mobile app that allows you to consult with doctors virtually. You can access your medical records. You can have a personalized health check or advice based on, you know, the information that's pulled out by how many steps you run and what's your heart rate. And so there's a lot of tech that's now picking up when you're going to have a heart attack, basically. So that's where the future of design is now coming into play. Then we have Meter Product, which is like a virtual health. So, you know, your online platforms that provides you with virtual consultants, fitness programs, you know, uh, it just basically offers a meta product and gives you an experience that integrates into your life. Competitive pressures. So in a competitive healthcare market, Discovery differentiates itself by being innovative, um, like your Vitality Active Reward Program. They use gamification to motivate you to achieve your health goals. And gamification is actually getting quite advanced now, where a lot of these high-flying institutions and organizations are using them. I mean, even us as an organization, we're starting to use gamification. So understanding it from that perspective. And then the last one is environmental issues. So making sure that um, they are sustainable by having environmentally friendly practices, supporting green initiatives, having eco-friendly practices. I mean, if you've been to one of these Discovery buildings, you'll see exactly where sustainability is sitting in from their perspective. So this basically sums up the future of design process. I mean, I did use Discovery as an example, but there is multiple organizations that go into the future of design. Like, for instance, I'll speak on from a logistics perspective, DHL. DHL is using, I'm not sure if a lot of you had seen those little tuk-tuks or those little scooters. I mean, these are EV vehicles that run between a certain kilometer, not on national freeways, but in little office parks or in a residential area, delivering last mile e-commerce deliveries. I mean, this is the future of design. It's small, it moves at a pretty decent speed. It navigates through traffic to get your parcel there a lot quicker. So it's just looking at those sort of initiatives of how you can make a better product, being influenced by the trends that's happening right now. I know from an EV perspective, so electric vehicle perspective, it may not always be viable for long distance, like a Joburg to Durban, for instance, because there's not a lot of charging points along the way. However, and also depending on the lifespan of your vehicle. However, in a short distance, it may be, if you're doing a 20, 30K radius or whatever that is. So what are the trends? How are you now following it? How can you now be sustainable when you are following it? Trying to go as green logistics and green energy and sustainability as possible. So I think that is us for tonight. I hope you have got the gist of a lot of what I was saying today, because a lot of it is now going to feature in your POE. So try and use a lot of these examples when you are trying to bring alive your question or your answer to your POE. And as we go along throughout the next few weeks, prior to your submission, we'll speak a lot on different case studies, because that's the only way for you to sort of understand. I mean, these concepts, you can read it off a textbook, but how can we now bring it to reality a little bit? Okay, is there any questions from anybody before we leave to celebrate our nice long weekend? Okay. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, guys. As mentioned, the session is recorded. It will be on the YouTube link. I will post everything tonight so you have it. And you guys have a fantastic long weekend. I will have a recording for you next week, and the following week we'll have a live lecture. WhatsApps are open, emails are open. Please let me know if you need any help whatsoever whilst you're doing POE. And we'll take it from there. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good night.